All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So here's the dealio. If you're new, excuse me, and don't quite know what is going on,
Women saying
I clicked on the wrong button there. Here's what's happening. The Pit Stop Boys, who have a podcast, I'll show you. Maybe you've seen them. Maybe you have not. By Jake and I actually just realized I don't know what the other guy's name is. Is it Fabio? Yeah. They have I think it is. I feel right on that. They have a podcast together. Now, there's been some stuff coming out recently because they, the other day on a podcast, they messed up and said something about the 2013 world champion, and they messed up that it was Sebastian Vettel. It was very small errors, nothing too crazy, but they messed up. So now there's just some interesting things coming about this. And I'm going to give you the kind of overview, and then we're going to look at some of the tweets, some of the TikToks, and then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. So, Sean and Elliot, Mogul Mail style, baby. Mogul Mail! I really need to make a Mogul Mail channel, I think, for F1. Don't know what to call it, though. So if anyone has any ideas on what I could call a second YouTube channel that's just me sitting here talking to camera, like very unedited, and then posting it, let me know. So here's basically the gist of it. They made a mistake on the podcast, had to do with Vettel, and now there's just there's a lot of frustration because there's a lot of people that are saying if this was a female-only podcast, like they would get absolutely annihilated. If this was females, if this was women, they would get annihilated. If this was, and then it started to turn a little bit. They have grown so much, and that just some people are saying it feels like they're getting opportunities that other people aren't saying. So what I want to do is look at Connie and her TikTok on this. I think it's interesting. No matter what your view is, I think it's an interesting TikTok. So it's like 40 seconds long. So we'll watch part of it together.
The Pit Stop Boys are doing everything right, and good for them. People's issue is not
Oops.
that they are successful. People's issue is that there are plenty of women doing the exact same thing that do not get an ounce of attention. Again, not a criticism of the Pit Stop Boys, but these guys openly talk about being new fans. The second women on this app say that, they are shut down. They are told that their opinions do not matter. It's great to see people being successful talking about something they love, but the double...
All right, so I'd like to address one very important thing. That's bad. It's bad that two people can have a complete podcast around being new F1 fans and get nothing but love for it and be like, this is such a unique perspective. And then women can be on TikTok and say, hey, I'm a new F1 fan, and they get completely shit on. That is problematic, y'all. That is very bad. So, and I think Connie approaches this in a very, just a very interesting way. So, this video, this is gonna be less about the video, and because it's a 3-minute video, and more about one of the comments that's on this video. So, here we go. Okay, this comment right here. Pit Stop also has grown way more than any other F1 podcast I've seen. It seems like they get preferential treatment because they have contacts. Okay. I would just like to address something very quickly. This comment right here. There's not a lot of comments that make me upset in the world. Blind ignorance and just being frustrated to be annoyed is fine. First of all, Siren's video here is not about the Pit Stop Boys. I think that's what everyone needs to. Oh my god, I want to see. What people need to realize here is that they're not trying to bash the Pit Stop Boys. The point that most people are trying to make is about female fans in F1. So this comment really interests me because it just feels like it's not understanding how the world of social media works. What a lot of people don't understand, and if you are not actually in the industry and you haven't done this job, like some of us have, is that who you know is literally everything in this job. It's kind of, you can think of social media kind of like the film industry, like being an actor, being in movies. It's literally all about connections. Just like a lot of jobs, it's about connections. It's about who you know, which is huge. Like, there are people that you need to know in order to get the job. And the same goes for social media. If you don't have those connections, if you don't have a manager that has those connections, you're not going to get those invites to really cool things. So that's why this comment just genuinely makes me a little upset, because all they're just saying is Pit Stop has grown way more than any other F1 podcast. It seems like they get preferential treatment because they have contacts. Yeah, that's the way any job works. If you know people, that's just the way the world will work. Is it kind of unfortunate? Yeah, it can be. Like, does it favor certain people? Of course it does. But at the end of the day, I mean, this has happened to me before. I mean, like, I have not gotten invited to events that I feel like I probably could have gotten invited to, but probably either one, because I live in the U.S., or two, because I just don't know the right people, which is fine. I also want a quick look.
Should people need to know that Seb Vettel won 4 world championships in Red Bull? If you were constantly being sent to racetracks across the world and given the opportunity to interview drivers, engineers and mechanics in your flat, then I would argue that yes, you should absolutely have learnt that piece of information by now.
Okay. This is a bit of an L take. I'll say it. There are so many F1 drivers that have won championships so many different years. I don't think you can expect people to know stats just because they've gone to different races. I don't. Oh, man, Siren, I was on your side, and now I'm just feeling a little funky. Man, that was interesting. One thing I'd like to point out really quickly, if you don't know, so the Pit Stop Boys, the Pit Stop podcast, which the Pit Stop Boys it's really throwing me when they're doing this. So the Pit Stop podcast has 2 members, Jake and I want to say it's Fabio. It's Fabio. I was right. Okay, cool. Jake and Fabio. Fabio has around 9,000 Instagram followers. But Jake, almost 250,000 Instagram followers. 250,000 is huge on Instagram, you guys. I don't think you all understand how many doors 250,000 opens on Instagram. And the thing to remember about this is that means he probably has a manager also, because if you don't know, he has this podcast. I think it's a podcast. Yeah. Which is about football news. 2.7 million followers. So the man knows how to make a podcast work. He understands it. He has a manager. He has contacts. He probably has editors even. A great example is looking at Ludwig on YouTube. Ludwig has his main account, and he has some smaller side accounts that he does. For example, Mogul Mail, where he literally just kind of does this kind of thing and talks to the camera and then posts it basically raw. And a lot of them have less than his main account. And if you look at them, you might be like, oh, how is this man like growing so fast in the sphere? It's like, well, because he literally has millions of dollars that he's putting into an entire team that is doing editing for him. So what I would like to say is Jake was extremely successful before this podcast. One, he's had a podcast that worked and again got 2.7 million followers to it. And also he himself has almost 250,000 followers on Instagram. So like he has some of these things in place, probably like managers, probably like agents, all these connections in the world of sports that is helping now. So when people are just saying, if you're just saying, oh, they're getting it because they're men, honestly, it's probably less of that and more just because they already have a giant following backing them. And it's huge, and they have a team that's helping them with things. So that's that point. I'd also like to point out this tweet by Will. A lot of aggravated chat, as ever, on this platform. Yay, good job, Twitter. Well done. Sad to see it directed from some content creators toward others. Ultimately, everyone fills different gaps in the market, and we can all learn from each other and how we can better connect. Better to build up than tear down. It's true. Especially in the world of podcasts, in Formula One, I think specifically, It is hard to have a podcast that does well in F1 unless, and I have said this since before our podcast started, unless you have a podcast that is in person. The Pit Stop Boys, every
Yeah.
Can you freestyle now?
It's pretty bad.
single podcast is in person like this. Basically, our podcast is all filmed over Zoom. Everything is on Zoom. So if we wanted to post a video, we could, but it would just be a 2D shot of the Zoom chat. I mean, look at them. They have backgrounds. They do a great job, honestly, and it's beautiful. And people are more likely to watch this. Now, granted, from an audio perspective, it doesn't really matter as much. But like it is where the fact that you can film in person makes a gigantic difference. And I don't think people realize in the podcast world how much of a difference that makes. One, because then you can like edit down clips and it looks good. There's so many options you can do when you have a good looking podcast. And unfortunately, there are just a lot of podcasts in the world of F1 that are just Zoom or something similar. And it's no fault to them when you guys are all around the world, and that's kind of how it's going to have to work. But when they are blessed to be together, that is going to be a gigantic, just a huge boost to what they can do. So all that being said, Will, a great honestly a great tweet from Will. I think people do need to be careful that some people are not, like Connie, a great take, not taking it too far, not attacking the actual Pit Stop podcast himself. Congrats, Siren, you were doing great, and then you attacked the podcast. Well done. Why? So audio quality, all these different things can have a huge impact on the actual podcast itself. If you don't know this, if you've never done a podcast, but like think about it this way. If you were watching my Twitch stream and every, I'm talking and then I'm doing this and like while I'm talking, like this, it's going to take about 5 seconds and you're going to leave. People forget that audio is more important than video. And you will just leave because you'll be like, I can't deal with this audio. I'm leaving. So there's a lot of factors that go into creating a podcast that's actually going to be successful. And have they gotten a little lucky? I would say, yeah, they've gotten a little lucky. They found a niche and they absolutely nailed it. But at the end of the day, I don't think we cannot get upset at them. If you would like to be upset that the fact that F1 women fans are not represented as well in podcasts, I see it. You can be upset about that, but don't single out this one podcast that has one of their members has almost 250,000 on Instagram and has started a podcast with almost 3 million on Instagram. Like, let's back it off a little bit and like let's talk about the bigger issue rather than singling out an individual podcast. If you want to use this podcast as a talking point, that's fine, but also, there are other there's other creators you could talk about. Like, people just need to be very careful during this time that they do not overstep and start blaming people that are also just F1 fans, because then at that point you're also gatekeeping. Like Siren in that video was gatekeeping, honestly. That was the definition of gatekeeping, to say that if you're gonna go to a track and get invited to go there, that you then need to know specific facts. No, that's just wrong. That is just incorrect. So that's my thoughts on the whole Pit Stop drama, the Pit Stop podcast. I can't say Pit Stop Boys because that really throws me. But if you guys have any thoughts, leave a comment. Let me know. Would love to hear more thoughts. And if you like this kind of video and you want to see more like this, let me know.